Hi everybody, how are y'all doing? Welcome back to the distance learning program. I hope you're all happy and you're staying safe and healthy. I was just wanting to start this video today with pronunciation, and so if you could turn in your Oxford Picture Dictionary, if you could turn to page 84, we're going to start on page 84 with the farmer's market. If you can repeat these words and phrases after me, that'll be great. The next word, live music, organic, lemonade, sour, samples, avocados, vendors, sweets, herbs. The H is silent in herbs. Count. Now let's turn to page 85. Page 85. Look at the pictures. What do you see? Answer the questions. How many vendors are at the market today? Which vegetables are organic? What are the children eating? What is the woman counting? Why? Read the story. The farmer's market. On Saturdays, the Novaks go to the farmer's market. They like to visit the vendors. Vendors are people who sell things. Alex Novak always goes to the hot food stand for lunch. His children love to eat the fruit samples. Alex's father usually buys some sweets and lemonade. The lemonade is very sour. Nina Novak likes to buy organic herbs and vegetables. Today she is buying avocados. The market worker counts 8 avocados. She gives Nina one more for free. There are other things to do at the market. The Novaks like to listen to live music. Sometimes they meet friends there. The farmer's market is a great place for families on a Saturday afternoon. Think about it. What's good or bad about shopping at a farmer's market? Imagine you are at the farmer's market. What will you buy? Now let's take a look at the picture and let's read the words in the picture. This sign says Green Farms, USDA Organic. USDA stands for U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now, on the table, you can see the sign that says Take One. 4 for $3. That means you can buy 4 avocados for $3. Now on page 85, up at the top on the sign, you see the words hot food and Kara's Bakery. And if you look at the spices on the table, you can see basil, chives, dill, and parsley. So that's it for pronunciation. Now, let's turn in our in our Ventures3 book, turn in this book to page 114. We're going to start looking at page 114, Unit 9C. Okay, so if you have your books open to page 114, I'm going to talk about the focus of this part of the lesson. For this part of the lesson, we're going to study using the past continuous and the simple past verb tenses with when and while clauses. So we're going to use 2 different types of verb tenses with when clauses and with while clauses. And it's interesting because I was looking in the book when I was preparing the video, and they have an example about Roberto and what he was doing last night. So I thought that was a real coincidence since we have a Roberto in our class. But let's just talk about this example in the book. If I said last night at 7 o'clock, I called Roberto, that means yesterday evening at 7 o'clock, I was on the phone making a call to Roberto. Now, if I asked you, Roberto, what are you doing? He could say, I was studying English. So last night when I called Roberto, he was studying English. So the thing that happened first, the action that occurred first, was that Roberto was studying English, and then I interrupted him when I made the phone call to him last night. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the when clause to show that the action is interrupting the other action. So if I said, when I called Roberto at 7 o'clock last night, he was studying English. So you use the past continuous form of the verb to talk about the action that was already occurring when I called. And then I use the simple past to talk about the action that interrupts my friend Roberto studying. Okay, so do you understand? You use when plus the simple past to talk about the action that interrupts the other action that was already occurring. I would say when I called Roberto last night at 7 o'clock, he was studying English. And you put the action that was already occurring or already happening, you put that in the past continuous form. So you use the past continuous verb form with the action that was already happening, and then you use when and the simple past to talk about the action that interrupts. So let's look at page 114, and we're going to do the grammar focus, adverb clauses with when and while. It says, use when or while to begin an adverb clause to show that one past action interrupted another past action. So Roberto was studying yesterday at 7 o'clock, so that action happened in the past, and I called yesterday at 7 o'clock, and that action happened in the past. So both actions happened in the past. And then it says, use when with the simple past for the action that interrupted. Use while with the past continuous to show the action that was happening before the interruption. So if I want to use the while clause, I could say, while Roberto was studying yesterday evening, I called him. So you can see that while goes with the past continuous form of the verb. While Roberto was studying English yesterday at 7 p.m., I called. So let's look at the examples here in the gray boxes. It says, the first example says, when the fire started, Maxine and Joel were sleeping. So the action that was occurring first is that Maxine and Joel were sleeping. And what interrupted their sleeping was the fire. So that is the part that goes with the simple past, and you use the when clause to describe that. So do you see that the when clause introduces the action that interrupts the other action that is already occurring? So the next one says, while Maxine and Joel were sleeping, a fire started in the kitchen. So again, remember, while goes with the action that was happening first, and then the other action that's in the simple past is what interrupts the action that's happening in the while clause. So it says, while Maxine and Joel were sleeping, so that was happening first. It says a fire started in the kitchen. So that interrupted Maxine and Joel sleeping. Another way you can remember this is that the action that is in the past continuous is the one that was happening first. That's the verb with the ing on the end. And the other simple past verb is the action that interrupts. So now the next one says, Maxine and Joel were sleeping when the fire started. So again, we're sleeping was the action that was happening first. And when the fire started, interrupted the sleeping. Next, it says, a fire started in the kitchen while Maxine and Joel were sleeping. So you see, you use when with the interruption, and you use while with the action that was happening first. So let's look at part 2. I'm going to read the sentences with the correct words in the blanks, and I'll put the right verb tense in each blank. So you have to remember that you use the past continuous form of the verb with the action that was happening first, and then you use the simple past with the action that interrupts the other action. So number 1 says, while Dad was working in the garden, a thief stole his car. So the action that happens first is Dad working in the garden, and then the interruption is the thief stealing the car. So the second part of the sentence interrupts the first part. And this direction says that we're supposed to put a 1 for the activity that was happening first and a 2 for the action that interrupts the other first activity. Okay, so number 2. It says, I was eating lunch when the fire alarm suddenly went off. I was eating lunch when the fire alarm suddenly went off. So the first action was eating lunch, and then the second action is the fire alarm suddenly going off. Number 3, Ali fell off a ladder while he was painting the ceiling. So the action that was happening first was he was painting the ceiling, and the interruption was falling off the ladder. So the second action happens first, and the falling off the ladder happens second. Number 4, when the earthquake started, the students were taking a test. So the first action was taking the test, and the second action was the earthquake started. Number 5. I was making a right turn when another car hit the back of my car. So what's the first action? That's making a right turn. And then the second action that interrupts the first one is another car hit the back of my car. Number 6. While we were camping, it suddenly began to rain. The first action is we were camping, and then the second action is it began to rain. Number 7. Mr. and Mrs. Gomez were jogging in the park when a dog began to chase them. Jogging in the park was the first action, and the dog began to chase them was the second action. Number 8. While Diana was working outside, a stranger drove up to her house. Working outside was the first action, and then the stranger driving up to the house was the second action. And finally, number 9, while we were driving to the beach, someone broke into our garage and stole our new lawnmower. So the first action was driving to the beach, and the second action was breaking into the garage and stealing the lawnmower. Okay, now if you can turn to the next page, page 115, we're going to look at these pictures and see if we can make sentences using when and while clauses. And then we also need to use the correct verb tense for each sentence. So it shows an example up here at the top. You have a woman working on her computer, and then you also have a tree that's falling on her house. So the action on the left is the one that happens first, and the action on the right is the one that interrupts. So the way that this conversation would go is that a person would say, "What happened?" And then the answer is, "While the woman was working, a tree fell on her house." So remember, the while clause is with the action that happens first, and then the simple past is the action that happens second. So it says, while the woman was working, that's the first action, the tree fell on her house. So that's the interruption or the second action. Now, if you wanted to use a when clause, remember the when clause goes with the action that interrupts. So you would say, the woman was working when a tree fell on her house. So you would say the woman was working when a tree fell on her house. Now, for picture number 2, we have a couple driving the car, and then the couple runs out of gas. So the question would be, what happened? And the answer would be, the couple was driving their car when they ran out of gas. The couple was driving their car when they ran out of gas. If you wanted to use while, you would say, while the couple was driving, they ran out of gas. Now for number 3, you have a couple eating dinner on the left, and on the right, you have a car outside the restaurant, and there's a police officer or a parking officer giving a ticket. So you see someone getting a ticket on the car. So it's a parking ticket. So if you wanted to make a sentence using while, you could say, what happened? And the answer would be, while the couple was eating dinner in the restaurant, they got a parking ticket. Or you could say, the couple was eating dinner in the restaurant when they got a parking ticket. That's using when. Next, look at picture number 4. The left picture shows a man cooking dinner, and then the right picture shows the lights going out. So the man was cooking dinner first, and then the lights went out. So you would say, while the man was cooking dinner, the lights went out. Or you could say, using a when clause, the man was cooking dinner when the lights went out. So I hope that that's an easy lesson for you. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me at my email address, or you can give me a call. That will conclude this lesson. So thanks a lot for listening, and I'll see you next time.